Hey guys, it's David Whitney. Welcome to another episode of Right Politics. And I have to say, because today I'm always proud to be an American, but America is slipping into communism faster than we can think. It is happening so fast because this Tim Walz guy that was announced a VP pick for Kamala Harris is an insane individual. You have to know. Do some research if you haven't known already. It's probably going to be plastered all over the news. He's not a good American citizen. He supports transgender operations for minors. He supports keeping the information of hormone blockers that are distributed by public schools from the knowledge of the parents of the individual who claims to be transgender or wants to know about irreversible transgender surgery, which, by the way, if you don't know, I know it's not good to talk about graphic content like this always on social media, but when a woman gets a sex change operation, they do not feel sexual pleasure, and a boy will no longer have his privates either. So not only would these individuals, when they grow into adulthood, not be able to, procreate, they will be sterilized from sexual pleasure. So you have to understand this is all but killing the individuality of a young person. So it should be illegal, banned in all 50 states. This practice is barbaric, and it's been done since the days of Nero. I was the first one to say in 2017 that the left is going to push this pedophilia nonsense to be mainstream as a sexual orientation. Because when Nero had his wife executed, he found some boy on the street that reminded him of her and had him castrated and used as his sex slave. And then you fast forward to 2024 and it's legal to castrate children. Now, who would castrate a child? A pedophile. So these doctors could be considered pedophiles because they're castrating children for $200,000 a pop. And I did this whole thing last year when I was uncovering how Vanderbilt Children's Hospital is and was receiving donations from LGBTQ communities to incentivize these sex change operations, which is just a whole money mill. And if this video ever gets, famous someday, just know that I am not the first one to say it. But transgender LGBTQ groups donate to children's hospitals so that the children's hospitals will do irreversible damage and have lifelong patients where they will make $200,000 a child up until the point of adulthood, like 25. This is something that happens and has happened. It's all about the money. It's not about individuals. All of these self-proclaimed Marxists and anti-capitalists are saying it's for the individuality and it's for expression, but it's all about capitalism because we're in a capitalist society and we will always choose capitalism, sometimes over moral obligations. And that is exactly what has happened to these sex change operations happening on kids. So you have to listen to this because this VP pick was strategic also to get the Muslim community on Kamala Harris's side after the support of Israel. Remember Genocide Joe? That's what they called it? Okay. He was Genocide Joe. Now Kamala backed his policies. Now Republicans have to understand that the same rhetoric is going to come from the left for Donald Trump if he's reelected. They're going to want him to have a different stance on Israel. It's not going to happen. They're our strongest ally in the region and maybe period. So this is what's going to happen. Kamala Harris was forced to pick this guy because there's a large Muslim community. And if you're talking about trying to get over the genocide vote, that's exactly what she's doing because these people want genocide more than Republicans according to their own logic, because they orchestrated October 7th, which is far worse than January 6th. So going back, without rabbit trailing too much, this is what needs to be known about the future policies in America. The reason I opened this video with saying that America is becoming a communist country is because the average wage of an American starting in an entry-level job, which is supposed to be starting salary, but how many people know 40, 50, 60-year-olds still making $15 an hour at starting wages, and they're only working 20 hours, 30 hours a week? Well, if you do basic math, if someone works 25 hours at $15 an hour, after taxes, they're making about $350 a week. The average rent in America is $1,500. So you add up those numbers, it leaves the average American with a part-time job, which a lot of people can only get those if they don't have a degree. It leaves them with maybe $20 to $50 left over for groceries. And that's without having car, without cell phone, and all those other expenses. So this is happening on purpose. You have to understand, Obamacare happened on purpose to push people into poverty. Because if you do not have a full-time job, you will live in poverty. And it's a timely fact. That's why there's such thing as roommates, because the individual cannot afford rent on their own. Every Central American country has 6 people live in a household, not because they want to, but because they have to. And now in America, you see 3 generations living under one roof, not because they want to, but they have to, because the economy is so bad, people cannot branch off on their own and start families. So if you're talking about genocide, the Democratic Party is also a death cult, because they want people to not be able to afford to have children, and they want for them to live with their mother and father up until their 40s or more. So how many people know someone in their 40s living with their parents? I do. So here's the thing. We have to cut and fight back on these policies, because what happened prior to the Affordable Care Act is you could still get a job in any region of America, and it doesn't matter if the wage is low. The wage is not the answer. It's the hours and the overtime that makes prosperity to the average blue-collar worker. You can ask someone who makes $20 an hour, if they're working 20 hours a week, they're making just as much as someone who makes $10 an hour working 40. So low wages can actually not impact the average American as much as low hours. So it's just, if you work 7 days a week and work those 2 days of overtime, your income doubles because of the overtime laws in America. So you have to be very, very careful of what kind of job you pick, but everything is just cut so small that they will say, oh, you're going to make, $18 an hour, $20 an hour, and then they still only work you 3 days. It's just to keep Americans poor, because if an American is poor, they are more likely to be dependent on food stamps, government assistance like Medicare, Medicaid. And Social Security is a whole nother thing. They want these seniors to barely be getting by on social services to the point of not being able to live comfortably. And this is over half the country. So a lot of times the half of the country that they call deplorables are low income, and they want to bring the country back to the glory days before these policies made us poor. And it happens not overnight, but by failed promises. So another thing I wanted to talk about today is that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. Joe Biden said that they were going to hire her because she was an African-American woman, and he pledged to pick an African-American woman. So that means it doesn't matter her qualification. She would have been put in the position. There's a lot of talk also about them trying to evoke the 25th. There's a video that I shared on Right Politics the other day about how he said if they had a very moral difference between him and the opposition, that he would fake an illness and drop out. Well, it's kind of what happened. Joe Biden always says the quiet part out loud. So let's recap. A diversity hire was thrown into the presidency because the person who was elected became mentally incompetent and was going to have the 25th Amendment evoked upon him. And in that process, that individual had to win the Muslim vote, so they picked someone from Minnesota with a high Muslim population. And both of these people think that feminism is the answer. Sources have said that the Shapiro was not picked because he had too much ambition to become president and would outstage Kamala. So it's just like the classic feminist. We need weak men behind us because strong men will take the spotlight from us. So that has happened. And we also have to talk about the major elephant in the room, that Kamala Harris is wanting to completely get rid of private health insurance. That's right. The only way that communism can work in America is to have no private health insurance. So she wants to completely eliminate private health insurance, and you can look up, the receipts are there. And if she tries this, it's never going to happen. But it's just the same false promises that they've been trying to get Democrats to sign up for the last 70 years that have never actually produced results. As an American, I don't believe that we can move forward as a country with another Democrat, elected president. Not democracy. I'm saying the Democratic Party and them with their nominee. So I really want to know what you guys think about this in the comments. I think Kamala was basically put in with this. I want to add this last comment. She was kind of illegally made the front runner and the nominee, because this is what happens. The delegates are voting on behalf of each state. So each state says, we're going to vote, and then whoever has basically the popular vote in each state, the delegates promise to vote on the behalf of the state that they represent. So they were not supposed to elect Kamala Harris as the nominee until the convention, which is next week. Instead, every delegate that's sworn up and down that they're going to vote for Biden, they changed election rules again, and they had a Zoom call where they all cast their votes for Kamala online, and never happened in person like it's supposed to. And their whole freaking, COVID scare convention's going to be online. It's reeked with corruption. They can't just take someone and make them the nominee before the convention by getting all the delegates on a Zoom call. But that's what they did, which also beat out any hope of an open convention, which is what should have happened, where the delegates go and vote for who their conscience says should be the president. And if that would have happened, it would have happened at the convention. So we talk about them changing the rules in 2020. They changed the rules again here and now. And now they're wanting to do it so Kamala Harris can ride up on her white horse at the convention in the same way Trump did and try to steal the show with being a woman, because that's her one quality that could possibly get her elected with her diversity. And they talk about white dudes for Harris. This guy's the whitest dude, and he's old. And the whole idea about the party moving away from older individuals into youth, she just shot down. So it's a double knife in their backs, because they cannot go forward with this idea that the past is better than the future. And she always says what can be unburdened by what has been, but her cabinet's going to be loaded with people over the age of 70. So I believe that older people are great for government. Donald Trump, all of them. Here's the thing. You can't say one thing and do a different action. And she sure is reading the teleprompter well, but that's her only good quality other than being a woman. Also, genetic quality should not make you qualified to, actually hold or run for office. So, with that, to recap, I want for you guys to like, share, comment below. I'm not going to be posting videos if there's not something exciting happening, but there's a lot of things exciting happening now. I don't believe in spamming videos that are just going to be intact with every single update. Like, for instance, I don't think the economy's crashing because Kamala Harris picked a vice president, because that happened a few days prior. So we'll see you next time on Right Politics. Have a good